long story, I got a student placement in Canada, and I was just really excited. I was like, oh, someone new. Got it all wrong. I was put in a kitchen for a marketing degree placement, and I've got the wrong visa, all that sort of stuff. So I basically came back and I was like, okay, I'll have a year out and I'll get some experience off my own back. And could not get a job anywhere. Like, there was a recession at the time. So it was like the worst decision ever at the time. Came back, I was renting the place in Sheffield. It was like the start of each month, I couldn't afford my rent at the end of the month. So I had like no money at all. I was getting by on, like, I worked warehouse jobs. I worked at a call centre for a bit and the bookies and stuff like that. I did basically anything. There was one month I won 150 quid and that paid my rent. So there was this time at uni where I was like, I was still pretty lazy. This year happened, and I realised, like, oh God, I've got no safety net at all. No one can help me. Like, my parents can lend me money or anything like that. And I got like a vision of like what my life could be like if I didn't sort myself out and start like applying myself a lot more. So that was, like, at the time, hellish year. Like, I was literally living off like Weetabix. And then looking back, so what I started to do in that year was I started to learn how to do like basic WordPress websites. So I taught myself that, and I started teaching myself stuff that wasn't spoon-fed to me by a lecturer or a teacher for the first time. And I started picking that up, and I started making a bit of money off it. So I built a WordPress site and for someone for like 250 quid or something like that. Little bits that I was picking up. And then from then I was completely different. So I went back to my third year, and I knuckled down, I got decent results. And I just started doing more stuff and taking it more seriously. I think because that year showed me what struggle was actually going to be like for me if I didn't sort of put my ideas up. So yeah, third year was completely different. I really enjoyed it. Lots of specific marketing modules, met lots of different types of people. And yeah, we didn't do a dissertation, but we did set up a business from start to finish and pitch it like Dragon's Den style. And then that, coupled with me having an absolutely horrendous year out, was like an instigator for me, I think, to sort myself out.
No, because I think when you've got that hunger, when you can almost realize how bad things could be or not be, when you think you have something taken away from you, I think you see it a lot as well. So there's Eddie Hearn, who's the boxing promoter.
Yeah.
He had a thing similar at kind of age where he realized actually, when he was at school, he had a rich dad and he always had teachers looking out for him and he could kind of dick about, and actually he knew he was always okay. And when he got to 17, 18 and he went to college, he realized that if he doesn't turn up, nobody cares. And it was that self-reliance thing. Actually, if I don't do something, and I need to knuckle down. But it's also fascinating about how, because I think similar, that when you get the passion to learn and you get your own hunger, the difference that can make just in terms of your excitement and your willingness to kind of do stuff is amazing. Obviously it's kind of gone quite well. So what happened next? How did you get your first job, and then how did that roll through to maybe recently?
Yeah, I mean, I've had quite a varied career, so I'll start from the very beginning, which I sometimes forget about. I worked at Sheffield Hallam for a year after graduating, so I got like it's almost like a graduate internship as like a marketing assistant on the student placement team. But I worked with a lot of different companies as forming relationships with the uni, so I got a feel for like what they were struggling with, and then social media came out, something that kept coming up, and they were trying to hire students for it because it was booming and they didn't really know what to do with it. So I basically went freelance pretty much straight after that. I set up under the name Social Marvels. So my idea was that, social media companies are struggling with social media. If they have a social marvel within their midst and they're trained and they know how to do it, almost a bit like a franchise. It was the kind of long-term plan, which wasn't the worst idea I've ever had. So I started doing that, and I started getting paid for local companies to manage their social media. So I got a check for 120 quid, was my first time I'd been paid off my own back. And I was like, okay, I can make some extra money. Like, I didn't have to do these ridiculous jobs I thought I had to do. So I started doing that, and then I started writing. I got some good, I used to write for a big website called Sabotage Times. Used to get a lot of traffic. A lot of good writers used to write for that. I wasn't one of them. I was not a very good writer at all. But I managed to get some gigs writing for them that was for free. And then I got some paid gigs writing for Top Man, Siemens, and some other fashion type sites. So I was making a bit of a living freelancing, writing, doing lots of different types of stuff. I went for an interview at an agency, because I wanted a full-time job and I wanted to get into an agency. And there was an agency called Pugh in Sheffield. Went for an interview there. I said, I've written this article. I got it retweeted off Netflix, and I can track that it's drove 3,000 hits to my site. And that just basically got me a job, because there was a time in Penguin and Panda penalties within that Google were giving out. You needed better content. You needed to earn links instead of buying them in the SEO industry now. So it was great timing. I sort of stumbled into it. No real plan in place. I just accidentally done that and then got offered a job. So I was content marketing manager there and grew an offering from scratch. So it was a smallish agency, web development agency primarily. But I got to do everything. So I came up with the ideas. I did the data. I say got to do everything. We didn't have resources to do everything. So I did it all. Did the outreach, basically did the whole process from start to finish on the content marketing. Started doing some cool campaigns that started getting into bigger publications like GQ magazine and national press and stuff. It was getting harder. So it seemed a bit like it is now. There's like, it's exploding, and what we call digital PR now, it's similar to what it was back then, or what it felt like. So I thought it was getting more and more saturated. So I set up a company. It was called Brew Social. So it's probably 2017, maybe. And my thought was that it's becoming saturated. I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to create cool campaigns. I'm just going to pay social media influencers to amplify them. So I recruited about 200 social media influencers within sport and travel. And the idea was to pay them to amplify campaigns that I was doing. And I quit my job and set up a company. And then, so basically I recruited those influencers and had meetings on my first day with like the media agents of like European footballers and down in London.
Wow.
So the agents of like Aaron Robben, Van Persie, Carl Walker, Jesse Lingard. I met those guys on day one in London. I picked up some work with Common Goal, which is the charity set up by One Matter, where footballers donate 1% of their salary to charity. So this is like week one. I was like, this is going to be incredible. Easy. Like I'm going to clean up here. Like then I got like destroyed in the meeting with another company that day. And then like it was like 4 months later, no clients, like struggling. Like all my clients that I used to work with were at my previous agency, same as all my contacts. So it took me like 6 to 12 months to get going. And then I probably ran it for about 18 months, 2 years, full-time-ish, and I worked myself into the ground completely, which we'll talk a bit more about later. So from there, I contracted at Jack's Flight Club, which is a subscription-based startup. They sold to Travelzoo, I think, for like 12 million quid or something last year. Then I became head of digital at an agency in Leeds called Fox, which was a B2B specialist agency. So I've had, ran my own company, worked for an agency, primarily B2C, then a subscription-based startup, and then I was head of digital at B2B agency. And then, I met Carrie and Stephen from Rise at 7, and then I sort of left there without a real job offer in place. I was just like, I'm going to be part of that company. Joined there, became head of digital strategy, and then eventually content marketing director there. Did some work I'm really proud of, met some really great people. I've managed to fit quite a bit in the past 10 years or so.
But I think it's one of the things that I love. It's the entrepreneurial hustle to do things, to actually, think, I'm going to set up on my own. I'm going to leave a job to do that. Takes balls. Not everyone would do that. And I think you actually do need to be a special type of person to have that risk, that you're comfortable to do certain things that a lot of people, 99% of people wouldn't do that. But it's funny again, I think it was really good to share how day one, most businesses get a quick win. Yeah. But then actually, I found there was a lull before you actually get any retained regular client. Then it builds. And to get through that valley of death, to make money, just anything to get through to there, it's, completely independently that everyone seems to find that. But again, there'll be people in the network who are in that exact same position where they're like, oh, fucking hell, it's harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's such a graft at the start. Like I grafted so hard to get the meetings that I got. So I managed to get pictures of like Sega and Google and stuff like that. And I don't know how really. It was purely just like I sat at a laptop for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's not even the best way of doing it, which I know now. It was not a productive way of spending my time at all. But the bits that I did get, and they weren't even real wins. It was like a pitch at Google. Like I said, I pat myself on the back, but I didn't actually win anything. And I had clients, but didn't meet my expectations whatsoever. And yeah, I think a lot of people obviously do find that, especially in the first year, that it's a real graft to get anywhere.
But one thing, I don't know about you, but when I either help someone else who's going through that now or even doing it myself, I respect the graft that you need to do, because I know that all of the greats, everyone that you love or respect in business has done that. And the people that haven't really, there's a camaraderie and respect for anyone that will do whatever it is that you need to do to just get some money in and just get it off the ground.
And I think you have conversations with people, and sometimes you inevitably compare yourself as well.
Yeah.
And I think at the time, the mistake I made, I was comparing myself to people I shouldn't have been comparing myself to. And then even to people around me who were setting up businesses or I knew about, I'd ask them a couple of questions and be like, how are you surviving at the minute? And sometimes it would be, well, yeah, I got money from my dad. And I was like, okay, I'm comparing myself to people who have safety nets and stuff, and I didn't have one myself. So that was something I learned definitely when I was doing it.
But I respect that. I think that's class. And again, when people might want to work with you in the future, it's that balance of people will respect that grind because they know that you know what it means. Because I think that's always the worry, is that when people are looking to outsource content creation or whichever to different people, you want to know that they respect your money as well. Does that make sense? That's a big driver for me, that, I go on gut feel, and if I like and trust someone, but especially with marketing, it's the proof of product, because you're always going to get people that promise the world, but actually they're kind of full of shit and they haven't done it. And it's just, I love that